Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 225. Mount Jiao laughs at me for being insane. Chu Wanning was the first to walk out of the passageway. Unlike the narrow tunnel, when he stepped out of the last stone step, what entered his vision was a large and empty platform. It was difficult to see the end of it, as if it was an open land floating above the 9 heavens. At this time, a bright moon was hanging in the sky. The high platform was lonely and barren. When he looked up, he could only see gusts of cold wind and hazy clouds. At the center of the high platform, a person was sitting there. It was Su Xuanglin. The people behind him came out one after another, but when they saw Su Xuanglin, they all fell into a daze. Xue Zhenyang was even more shocked. What is going on? Another person gasped and whispered, "Heavens, how could this be? Is he dead or alive?" Mo Ran walked towards him. The closer he got, the more goosebumps he got with what he saw. Su Xuanglin was sitting cross-legged on the ground with his eyes closed. The right half of his body was completely rotten. It was impossible to see the shape of a human. Pus and black water constantly gushed out from his body. The stench was overwhelming. In front of him, to the left and to the right, there were 5 holy weapons exuding extremely powerful auras. Mo Ran's fingertips couldn't help but curl when he saw Buletin Gui. Buletin Gui was embedded deeply into the ground. A faint green glow climbed up from the ground where it was pierced and finally merged with the radiance of the other 4 weapons into a stream. It surged into Su Xuanglin's heart cavity, illuminating Su Xuanglin's bony face, making it flicker between light and shadows. Behind Su Xuanglin, there was a mass of black smoke spiraling and twisting. It seemed to be some kind of enchantment that was about to take shape. The others followed one after another. Huang Xiaoyu muttered in disbelief, This is the martial spirit formation." Xuemeng didn't know what the martial spirit formation was. Just as he was about to ask his father, he turned his head and saw Xue Zhenjiang's pale face. Obviously, he didn't believe that someone would use this kind of technique. What the hell is this? It was clear that Xuemeng wasn't the only one who didn't know about the martial spirit formation. Another junior asked softly. Chu Wanning stared at Su Xuanglin's face and said, "The martial spirit formation is to offer one soul to the blood-stained holy weapon and make a contract with it. After death, one soul will be devoured by the weapon spirit of the holy weapon as a sacrifice to refine the holy weapon." Sacrificing his life to the holy weapon. Xuemeng was stunned. "Why would you do that?" "Because he doesn't have enough spiritual energy," Chu Wanning said. "This is a method that can rapidly and greatly increase one's spiritual strength." He offered his soul to the holy weapon and the holy weapon would lend its power to him. While they were talking, they suddenly heard a faint sigh. Almost everyone couldn't help but take a step back. Xuemeng unsheathed Long Cheng and stared at Su Xuanglin's face. Su Xuanglin slowly opened his eyes. Under the moonlight, he raised his head. Half of his face was normal, but the other half was a puddle of pungent mud. "Grandmaster Chu. Everyone, you still found me." He supported himself with one hand on the ground and stood up shakily. His eyes swept across the faces that were either vigilant, disgusted, or fearful. He didn't care though. His normal eye moved and there was even a kind of malicious teasing, evil aura in it. However, he scanned the area again and again, but did not find the existence of that person. The malicious smile on his face froze and disappeared. Su Xuanglin fiercely shouted, "Where's Ye Wangzi?" Xuemeng angrily said, "You think you're worthy of mentioning her name? What did you do to her?" Xuemeng got even more angrier. "Why do you care? You're such a heartless person without blood and flesh. What right do you have to worry about Ye Wangzi? Worry about her?" This word seemed to provoke Su Xuanglin. He was stunned at first, then narrowed his eyes and seemed to slowly calm down. "No, why would I worry about her? How ridiculous." Zhang Shi said coldly, Why are you still talking so much nonsense with him? Kill him. As he spoke, he raised his right hand and Sui Huang appeared in his palm. He was about to slash at Su Xuanglin when a black shadow as fast as lightning blocked his attack. Zhang Shi raised his eyebrows and gritted his teeth. Grandmaster Mo, why are you stopping me? I have something to ask him. Mo Ran said as he turned around. His eyes flashed with a complicated light. He pursed his lips. He seemed to want to say more, but in the end, he only spat out, "Where's your accomplice?" Su Xuanglin slowly. He was already like this, but he could still slowly rubbed his toes. Mo Ran noticed that he didn't wear shoes today. If I have an accomplice. Su Xuanglin revealed his eerie white teeth and smiled. The smile on one side of his face looked very bright and carried a trace of ridicule. Then you should know that I definitely won't tell you. I, Su Xuanglin, still understand the code of brotherhood in Jianghu. You heroes, gentlemen, don't waste your time on this. He deliberately glanced at Jianghui in Mo Ran's hand and said, don't bother to use other interrogation methods. At worst, I'll just cut off my own tongue. I always have a way to not tell the truth. Xuemeng seemed very astonished. You, someone like you actually has the nerve to talk about the code of brotherhood in Jianghu. Is that so strange? Why can't I talk about the code of brotherhood in Jianghu? Su Xuanglin said, friends help each other, brothers respect each other, teachers are kind and disciples are filial. The good enjoy peace and the evil receive punishment. This is how the world should be. Do you think that only people like you can understand this principle? Xuemeng was dumbfounded by his thick skin. He pointed at him and said, brothers and friends. Teachers are kind and disciples are filial? You. Su Xuanglin said slowly, me? What? Don't you have any sense of shame at all? You're the one who fought with your own brother. You're also the one who instigated Nangonglu to eat Luo Fenghua's spiritual core. You've done all kinds of deplorable things and yet, you actually have the nerve to say that this is how the world should be? Faced with Xuemeng's series of questions, Su Xuanglin grinned as he looked at him. Then he suddenly asked, little brother, how old are you this year? Why are you asking this? It's fine if you don't tell me. Su Xuanglin looked him up and down and said, I think you're around 20 years old. 20 years old people are always hot-blooded, innocent, and arrogant, thinking that there's nothing in the world that they can't do. He paused and said with a smile, it's really the best age. The radiance of the powers of the holy weapons on the ground continued to flow, continuing to give him strong spiritual power. He used this spiritual power to maintain his control over the thousands of Zhenlong chess pieces and resist the counter-attack of the chess pieces. But even so, his skin was decaying at a speed visible to the naked eye. Su Xuanglin didn't care. He seemed to not see his body was being corroded by the evil spirit. He paced back and forth in front of the coiling barrier behind him. 20 years old. Do you know what I was doing when I was around your age? What else could you have been doing? Xuemeng said with righteous indignation, who doesn't know what you did? You stole the sect leader's ring and usurped your brother as the sect leader of the Rufeng sect. In just 2 months, you killed 2 sect leaders from the upper cultivation world. Later, someone came to you to ask for an explanation, but you dug out all their eyes. You damn pervert. You're unjust, unrighteous, and unreasonable. You've done it all. If I were like you and did these things when I was 20 years old, I'd rather die at the age of 12. Xue Zhenyang saw how agitated his son got. He was afraid that he would attract Su Xuanglin's attention. So, he whispered, Meng Er, don't talk too much. Don't. Little did he know that the sentence was heard by Su Xuanglin. He smiled and waved his hand. Go on. You can talk as much as you want to. Xuemeng saw that he was still smiling. His expression was like watching a parrot flapping its wings and singing on a shelf. He was full of amusement. He couldn't help but feel hot blood rushing to his head. He said angrily, You're really shameless. You're incurable. What's there to be shameless about? What you said is nothing, Su Xuanglin said. You said that I stole the sect leader's ring. Since ancient times, high positions have been occupied by the capable. My brother is a good-for-nothing. He doesn't know anything, but he still managed to do something by using his smooth tongue. People who haven't actually competed with him think that he's one of the best and call us an equally distinguished young masters of the Rufeng sect, that we're on par with each other in terms of spiritual power and spell techniques. Don't you think that's outrageous? Me and him. Su Xuanglin slapped his forehead and sneered, How ridiculous. Since I was young, I could beat him with one hand, and yet you called him on par with me? While I was cultivating all day long, he only knew how to act spoiled in his mother's arms and peel oranges to eat. While I practiced in winter and summer, he didn't even study in spring, and for him, the hot summer was perfect for sleeping. Later, in order to get a proper reputation at the Lingshan Mountain Conference, he played tricks behind my back and enjoyed the fruits of my labor. What happened after that? You accuse a hard-working person of copying someone else's work and praised the one who actually plagiarized. Is that fair? Xuemeng hesitated, but still insisted, But you didn't have to go to this extent. Nonsense. It's easy to just stand there and talk. It's easy to criticize others with empty words, but when it comes to yourself, it's a completely different situation. If it were you, would you be able to tolerate something like what happened to me at the Lingshan Mountain Conference? Xuemeng was caught off guard by his counterattack. He was stunned. If it were him, would he be able to tolerate it? Hundreds of people in the venue are pointing fingers at you and saying that you are shameless. The ranking and applause are all his, and all that's left for you is an injustice that you can't wash away for the rest of your life. Your diligent and hard work are utterly defeated by his brilliant tongue. Is this fairness? Seeing that Xuemeng was stunned and speechless, Su Xuanglin sneered, Let's talk about the matter of me killing the two leaders. Of the two of them, one knocked on the yugu all day long, reciting Namo Amitabha better than anyone else. The other was awe-inspiring, an upright and plain-spoken gentleman whose reputation was known throughout the world. But for their own selfish interests, they unabashedly pushed me into the bottomless abyss. Let me ask you all, why should I spare their worthless lives? When the people of the two sects heard him talk about their former leaders like this, their faces turned green and purple. They wanted to refute, but they couldn't say anything. In the end, Master Xianjing of Wuobei Temple sighed softly, closed his eyes and put his palms together. Revenge breeds revenge. When will there be an end to it? Yes, when will there be an end to it? Everyone wants the hatred to end, but why should it end with me? Su Xuanglin said each word angrily, but his face was still smiling. His smile was light and even a little sarcastic. If I slap you and then say that revenge breeds revenge, when will there be an end to it? If I don't let you slap me back, would you have accepted it, bald donkey? Someone said angrily, Nanggong Su, clean your mouth. How can you talk to your senior like that? I'm also your fucking senior. Su Xuanglin smiled and said, Little boy, you better watch your mouth. Huang Xiaoyu twisted his beard and said, Nanggong Su. Before he could finish, the other party gestured for him to stop. He pulled the corner of his mouth, which was half intact and half rotten, and said, I'm open for discussion, but can you call me Su Xuanglin? I don't like the name Nanggong Su. Huang Xiaoyu flicked his sleeves and said, Even if you want to seek justice, you should have done it long ago by killing the two sect leaders. What's the reason for gouging out so many people's eyeballs? Su Xuanglin said cheerfully, In the past, I tried to reason with you. But no one listened to me. He paused for a moment, then chuckled. What happened after that? I became a madman, but you guys wanted to drag a lunatic into a debate about black and white. You gentlemen are really interesting. He clapped his hands. This is so interesting. Moran, who had been standing at the side and hadn't said anything, suddenly asked, "So, you were asking for fairness, right?" Su Xuanglин's gaze moved up to him inch by inch until it reached Moran's face. The two of them looked at each other on the cold stone platform. In Moran's eyes, Su Xuanglин's figure gradually blurred. It was as if he didn't see the man in front of him with rotting limbs. What he saw was another figure through Su Xuanglin, wearing a diadem and donning a black and gold robe. He saw the emperor, Taxian Jun. He saw himself in his previous life. On the way here, we met Nangang Lu. He called you your majesty. So, you gave yourself a title who has the absolute power of judgment. Moran said, "Whatever you say is right, whatever you say wrong is out of line. Life and death are all up to you. Is this what you call fairness?" Su Xuanglin was silent for a moment, then laughed coldly. But what Moran saw was Taxian Jun laughing coldly, his pale and handsome face full of ridicule. "So, what if it is? You saw it too, right? I used to believe in you gentlemen, believed in the so-called fairness of the world, but what happened in the end?" He paused, pacing back and forth in front of the martial spirit formation, his eyes flashing with excitement. "It was you who worshipped cowards as heroes, and trampled real heroes under your feet. It was you who treated hard work as dirt and turned the latrine into an altar. It was you who saw flattery as friendliness, and pride as arrogance. You did all kinds of evil things, and trampled me into the mud. Then you tell me that no matter how many sins I have suffered, even if I am framed by my brother, even if I am not fully clothed and humiliated, that was my business alone. No matter what, I should not vent my resentment on innocent people." Ha, what a joke. Moran saw how Taxian Jun's cold laughter became more and more exaggerated, as it gradually turned into a hideous grin. "You weren't the one who was condemned, and you weren't the one who bore the groundless accusation. Of course, you can say all kinds of beautiful words. And I'm just using my own way to seek justice in the world, that's all." Justice in the world. Moran could see himself standing on opposite side with Taxian Jun as he asked, "How many people have you killed to get your own justice in the world? You proclaimed yourself as the emperor with piles of bones and blood under your feet. Don't you feel the slightest bit of repentance? What is there to repent for? I killed them, but I will give them a chance to be reborn. They will all become my chess pieces, and from then on, everything they do will be under my control. From then on, black and white will be clear, and good and evil will be distinguished. This is justice in the world." Moran was silent for a while, and said, "It seems that you really think of yourself as the ruler who could pass judgment." "I am a ruler." Su Xuanglin stood in the wind. He was Nangang Su to everyone's eyes, but in Moran's eyes, he was Taxian Jun. He said, "Look at the front hall, don't you think it's beautiful? The good people all live and work in peace and contentment, while the detestable ones are burned by fire, cooked in a cauldron. Whoever stabbed others with a knife, let them stretch out their neck to be killed. Every debt will be settled clearly. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. Is there anything wrong with that?" Moran said, "You really think too highly of yourself." Then he heard Taxian Jun reply, "Why should I look down on myself? In my opinion, this is the best karma." For a while, no one said anything. Most of the people were shocked by Su Xuanglin's delirious declarations. Before they came here, many people thought that Su Xuanglin did all this for power, for personal revenge. None of them thought that Su Xuanglin would think that everything he did was right, that it was for the sake of justice. But in this world, who could be considered the fairest and righteous one? Even the Tianyan pavilion might not be able to do it. Moran stood in place. After a while, his heart finally calmed down a bit. He looked at Taxian Jun, who was standing opposite to him. The crown disappeared, his handsome face sunk in and became charred black. He blinked. Then person in front of him was Su Xuanglin and not Taxian Jun anymore. Because Su Xuanglin's actions were too similar to his actions in his previous life, he actually had the illusion that he was talking to himself through time and space. Well then, I can now understand the chess pieces in the hall and why you let them retain their minds before they die, even if you don't have enough spiritual powers to control them. You have built your own state in this heavenly palace where you were the god, the Buddha, the emperor. You have divided this world into two where good and evil were clearly defined. This is the fairness you want. As he was saying this, his mind was like a blizzard, quickly flashing through many fragments of memories related to Su Xuanglin. In his previous life, in order to save Ye Wangzi, Su Xuanglin died under his sword. Standing barefoot in the Sansheng courtyard, Su Xuanglin laughed and teased the bird. Beside the Jinchinj lake, Su Xuanglin asked his elder brother for a piece of orange as a reward. The orange trees on Mount Qiao, Nangonglu, whose mind returned to its childhood, Luo Fenghua, who was snatched back from the infinite hell. One by one, they all came together and rushed into his mind like a tsunami. Mo Ran raised his dark eyes. There was neither ridicule nor disdain in those eyes. He just looked at him calmly. Am I right, Nangong Su? Call me Su Xuang. No, you are called Nangong Su. Mo Ran interjected as he stepped forward slowly. He looked at the man whose flesh and bones were decaying. He knew that there was no one present who knew better than him what Nangong Su was thinking at this moment. They were both people who had been forced into a dead end. Taxian Jun of his previous life and Su Xuanglin in this life, were the same. He saw everything clearly. He stared at Su Xuanglin's face and did not miss the slightest change in his expressions. He stopped and suddenly looked down. The ground is very, very cold, Mo Ran said softly. Nangong Su, why don't you wear shoes? The smile on Su Xuanglin's face suddenly froze as his sparkling eyes turned icy. He replied, I don't want to wear shoes. I want to. Do you like Ye Wangzi? Was Mo Ran's follow-up question. Nangong Su. That day when I went to Sansheng courtyard and saw you for the first time, you weren't wearing shoes as well. Mo Ran said, she was the one who told you to wear them. You probably didn't realize the satisfied expression on your face when she did. Mo Ran stared at Su Xuanglin's face. That was the answer he had guessed in his heart when he was on Flowing Flower Island and looked at the blazing hellfire on the opposite shore of Lanyi. Nangong Su, you've been hoping that someone would notice your bare feet. You've been hoping that someone would tell you. Su Xuanglin, who had been smiling all this time, suddenly had a trace of fear on his face. He took a step back, wrinkled his nose and said with a ferocious expression, shut up. Mo Ran naturally would not shut up. He looked at Su Xuanglin. What was originally just a guess turned into reality when Su Xuanglin suddenly reacted violently. Mo Ran looked at him. He felt that he was not looking at Su Xuanglin, but the him from his previous life who was trapped in the darkness and could not find a way out. Put on your shoes. The ground is cold. Suddenly, Su Xuanglin leaped up like a cheetah. Light and shadow flashed, and Su Xuanglin suddenly pounced on Mo Ran and grabbed him by the collar. The normal human hand and the pungent ghost claw grabbed him at the same time. Su Xuanglin's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and said, shut up. You shut up? All right, I will shut up, but let me just say one more thing. Don't say. Su Xuanglin was almost desperate. He was like a dragon who had its reverse scale pulled out. Blood flowed out like a stream. Don't say it. Ye Wangzi really looked like Luo Fenghua. The sentence was said casually, but it drained all of Su Xuanglin's strength in an instant. He was speechless and stood on the ground blankly. Some of the people around them who had seen both Luo Fenghua and Ye Wangzi were stunned. In their minds, they recalled these two completely different people. They were not related, and even in the turbulent world of mortals, one had already died, while the other had just been born. But with this reminder, they suddenly realized. Ah, it was really like that. Ye Wangzi's every move, every gestures, even her temperament, voice, and expression were exactly the same as Su Xuanglин's teacher, Luo Fenghua. Su Xuanglin suddenly withdrew his hands from Mo Ran. His fingers twisted ferociously. He buried his face in his palms, and his shoulders trembled slightly. Xuemeng muttered, Is he crying? Crying? That's impossible. Su Xuanglin buried his head in his palms. After a long time, the trembling of his shoulders became more and more obvious. A twisted and strange smile leaked out from between his fingers. Ha! That smile spread like ripples. He suddenly put down his hands and laughed crazily. Ha 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 ha, similar. That's nonsense. Grandmaster Mo, have you seen Luo Fenghua? You only caught a glimpse of his corpse when the rift to the infinite hell opened. How can you say they look alike just based on that one glance? Aren't you a bit too confident? Since you yourself mentioned the infinite hell and Luo Fenghua's corpse, Mo Ran said, then let me ask you, where is he? Su Xuanglin's eyes were ruthless. His smile suddenly tightened. What do you mean, where is he? In your territory where good and evil were well defined, the good ones were rewarded while the evil ones got punishments. Everything is under your control. However, you didn't kill Nangonglu in the end. You even removed the curse of the Lingqi fruit. I don't know why you did that, but since he's here, there's no reason for you to abandon Luo Fenghua. Your spiritual power is insufficient that you have to offer your soul to the holy weapons. But in Jinchinj Lake and in Peach Blossom Springs, we've fought against you several times. I know that your strength could not be only this much. Su Xuanglin. There has to be another reason why your spiritual energy is not enough. And it's probably because aside from using Zhenlong chess formation, you have been painstaking cultivating a second forbidden technique all these years. Mo Ran paused for a moment before he finally plunged the knife down. Did your rebirth technique finally save Luo Fenghua from the 18 levels of hell? Before he finished speaking, Su Xuanglin's face had turned ashen. He was about to say something, but suddenly, the black formation behind him that had been circulating all this time emitted a white smoke. Xue Zhenyang, who was experienced on the battlefield, reacted the fastest. Watch out! There's something behind that formation. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 226. Mount Jiao will never be forgotten. Everyone's weapons were drawn. Xue Zhenyang shielded Xuemeng behind him with a pale expression. Meng Er, don't go over there. Stand behind me. Just now, when everyone saw the martial spirit formation, they naturally didn't want to break it. This was because once the martial spirit formation was broken by someone else, Su Xuanglin's spirit energy would quickly deplete and it was very likely that he would die immediately. No one expected that Su Xuanglin would hide another array under the martial spirit formation. What kind of array was it? Was it a space rift for escape? Furthermore, was it a ferocious blood curse that would allow one to fight to the death? Chu Wanning raised his hand and placed a barrier between them and the array. Nangongsi had just died right in front of him. He didn't want to see more young cultivators die on his watch. Chu Wanning said, "Be careful. Don't be rash." The sky suddenly darkened and the clouds gathered. The bright moon hanging high in the sky was covered by thick, ink-like clouds. In an instant, sand and pebbles flew everywhere, confusing everyone. Su Xuanglin was dressed in a pure white unlined garment. He stood in the middle of the sudden gale and suddenly grinned at them. Many thanks for listening to my idle chatter for so long. Thank you, thank you. Everyone, the array has activated. As he spoke, the withered ghost claw pointed backward, and the black array formation surged into his palm like a flying dragon. After this layer of formation was withdrawn, it revealed the spell formation flowing with multicolored light below. Xuemen was shocked. What kind of array is this? Is it the array of rebirth? Xue Zhenyang turned to ask Master Xianjing of Liubei Temple, but the master shook his head. Although Huizhui is proficient in the techniques of rebirth, he has never shown it in front of others. Therefore, I don't know about it. Everyone was staring at the array. Each and every one of them was like a bowstring pulled to its limit. They were waiting for Su Xuanglin's slightest move. The air was quiet to the extreme. Only the whistling of the strong wind could be heard. They were like a pot of oil that seemed calm but was actually burning hot. Only one drop of water was needed. It's the corpse soul formation. Suddenly, there was a loud shout. It was earth-shattering and mind-blowing. Hua Binan recognized the formation at first glance. He yelled, "Corpse soul formation! Su Xuanglin wants to summon Luo Fenghua's corpse demon to take us down with him. Quick! We can't let the formation take shape." Hearing the words corpse soul formation, almost everyone panicked. They all knew that this was a demonic secret technique that was second only to the three great forbidden techniques. As the foremost medical grandmaster in the world, Han Lin Divine Hand's words could not be wrong. Zhang Shi was also a person who was proficient in using medicine. Since he was young, he had heard all about the corpse soul formation. Thus, his reaction was much faster than the average cultivator. He rushed in front of the barrier and pulled out his Suihuang. His spirit energy exploded as he fiercely attacked the center of the barrier. Clang! The sword and saber collided. Sparks flew everywhere. Su Xuanglin quickly appeared in front of the corpse soul formation and blocked Zhang Shi's attack with his saber. His eyes were cold and sharp. "This is what I've been wanting all of my life. Don't even think about taking half a step closer." Zhang Shi was furious. "Is a life and death struggle what you seek for the rest of your life?" Su Xuanglin gritted his teeth. "Nonsense." His hand that was holding the sword couldn't stop trembling. His veins were bulging, and his cheeks were flushed. Zhang Shi said, "You're already covered in wounds. Even if you turn into a corpse demon, what can you do? Drag a few more people down with you? What corpse demon? What do you mean by that? Open your eyes and take a good look. Where is this?" Swoosh! Just as Zhang Shi was restraining Su Xuanglin, an arrow infused with spiritual power shot out from somewhere and shot towards the barrier behind the two of them at an extremely fast speed. "Don't!" Su Xuanglin, who had always been calm, let out a horrifying scream for the first time tonight. "Stop!" Almost in the instant he was distracted, Su Xuanglin was struck by Zhang Shi's plunging sword. At once, blood spurted out wildly. He was in so much pain that he suddenly knelt on the ground. However, his eyes were filled with madness and despair. He was not looking at his own flesh that had been cut off, not his exposed white bone. His eyes were about to split open, but he was looking in the direction of the barrier. His face was still spattered with blood. His eyes were bulging, and his lips couldn't stop trembling. That type of terrified expression, regardless of whether it was the past Nangang Su's face or the later Su Xuanglin's face, had never appeared before. He was trembling, but his palm was still in the position of releasing spiritual power. He had used almost all of his strength in this attack just to stop that piercing arrow in front of the formation. He succeeded. Su Xuanglin gasped for breath. Blood kept flowing out of the arm that was cut by Zhang Shi, and blood foam kept seeping out of the corner of his mouth. But when he saw that the arrow was successfully blocked and shattered under his spiritual power, his pale lips trembled and he squeezed out a smile. At this time, Mo Ran heard Shi Mei murmur beside him, This isn't the corpse soul formation." Huang Xiaoyu heard his words. Huang Xiaoyu twisted his beard and snorted, "You're so young. Aren't you ashamed? How can Han Lin be wrong when he says it's the corpse soul formation?" Shimei shook his head firmly. The corpse soul formation isn't like that. I say, are you the Grand Master Hanlin Divine Hands of the Gaiyu sect or are you not? Shimei was about to reply but Mo Ran stopped him. Shimei, don't waste your time talking sense with this old man. Mo Ran said, are you sure this isn't the corpse soul formation? It just looks like it, but it definitely isn't. The corpse soul formation has a fish-scale luster. Although this array has light, it's continuous and not fragmented. At this time, Jiang Shi, who was in front of the array, shouted angrily, Nangong Su, just what are you trying to do? Su Xuanglin completely ignored him. The formation emitted a dazzling brilliance. He dragged his battered body all the way to the front of the formation. Blood dripped all over the ground. The smile on his face became more and more pronounced. The brilliance of the array illuminated his face, giving him a high-spirited look. For a moment, he looked like a young man. He murmured, it's almost time. He raised his hand and lightly touched the surface of the array. As his fingers fell, ripples appeared. He felt like he was about to see an old friend he had been separated from for many years, a relative he hadn't seen for a long time. His hideous wounds and rotting body couldn't deter his joy. His eyes brightened, and he kept murmuring, it's almost time, soon, just a little bit more. The surging wind suddenly stopped, and the thick clouds dispersed, revealing the full moon in the sky. Su Xuanglin opened his eyes full of hope. He was trembling again, but this time, it wasn't because of fear, but because of excitement, uncontrollable excitement. Shizun. Everyone noticed that a golden light suddenly appeared in the array, and then a sparkling and translucent spiritual core appeared. The array continuously sent light to the center of the spiritual core and the countless strands of light gradually took shape of a human. It's Luo Fenghua. It's Luo Fenghua. Luo Fenghua, who had been dead for many years, appeared on the soul summoning altar of the Rufeng sect. An orange tree with blooming flowers appeared in the array flowing with golden light. White petals fluttered down. Luo Fenghua was sitting under the tree, wearing the sky blue crane robe of the Rufeng sect. He was playing the konghao with his eyes closed. He was still an illusory figure, a blurred image, like a mirror reflection of the moon in the water. Only the spiritual core of the reborn ghost fetus obtained from the netherworld was real. It was emitting light under the illusory body. 3 or 4 petals fall in the pond, 1 or 2 strings on the shore. A faint male voice came from the center of the spiritual core, unperturbed. Luo Fenghua under the flowering tree was singing a tune native to the people of Sichuan. It's best to be in the prime of your life. Light hooves and fast horses, see all the flowers in the world. Suddenly, a hoarse voice blended together with Luo Fenghua's illusory voice. It was actually Su Xuanglin singing along. That voice was choked with sobs and was too unpleasant to listen to. It was like a broken gong, like rotten iron, but it still sung stubbornly, as if there was no one else present hearing it. This is the corpse demon. Xue Zhenyang was stunned. What's going on? Obviously, more than one person had the same doubts as him. Even Jiang Shi frowned slightly. He pursed his lips and didn't say anything as traces of doubt seemed to appear in his eyes. As the golden light floated, Luo Fenghua slowly took shape. His eyebrows, eyes, nose, and lips became clearer and clearer. In the midst of the serene singing, Hua Binan suddenly shouted, "Quick! The corpse demon is about to take shape." Shimei had been keeping a low profile along the way. He knew that he wasn't very strong, so he tried not to stand out too much. However, at this moment, he suddenly turned to Hua Binan and said loudly, "Senior Hanlin is wrong. This is not the corpse demon. It's the array of rebirth." Mo Ren already understood. Yes, Shimei was right. This was not the corpse soul formation but an array of rebirth. But in a group of people gathered together, would they believe a nameless cultivator over the famous sacred hands of the Gaiyu sect? As soon as Hua Binan said that the corpse demon was about to take shape, no matter how much she may refuted, for most people, saving their own lives was more important. Immediately, a dark green shadow flew past them. Before Su Xuanglin could react, the shadow stabbed a dagger full of spiritual energy into the barrier. No. The dagger smashed Luo Fenghua's spiritual core. The golden light of the barrier flickered for a moment, then dissipated and fell apart. No. No. Shizun. Shizun. Su Xuanglin suddenly crawled to his feet. With a furious roar, he struck that person high up in the air and sent him flying about a foot away. That was a cultivator who had listened to Hua Binan's instructions at the critical moment. He suddenly vomited a large mouthful of blood. Su Xuanglin had used all of his strength in this strike. Even though he was now an arrow at the end of its flight, that cultivator was still beaten to the ground and could not get up anymore. He curled up on the ground and kept moaning. Soon, he stopped breathing. But it was too late. This cultivator's death couldn't change anything. The spiritual core of Luo Fenghua that Su Xuanglin had tried so hard to take back from the infinite hell had already cracked open. He crawled all the way to Luo Fenghua and tried to hold onto the hem of Luo Fenghua's clothes, but the human figure had already begun to dissipate. In his hands, the hem of Luo Fenghua's clothes was like sand between his fingers, like water in a basket. He couldn't hold onto it no matter how hard he tried. Shizun! Shizun! He shouted like this at first. Then, he went crazy. His eyes flashed with a ferocious and trembling light. Luo Fenghua! Luo Fenghua! It was useless. No matter how he shouted, no matter how he called. Luo Fenghua's after-images were rapidly dissipating. In the end, they turned into thousands of fluorescent lights in an instant and were blown into the wind. Nothing was left. Su Xuanglin knelt in the same place in a daze. His entire body seemed very stiff. He didn't move. He didn't cry. He didn't shout anymore. On the soul-summoning platform, in the chilly wind, a cracked spiritual core lost its light and fell to the ground, dim and colorless. The spiritual flow of the array, which was originally going to converge into Luo Fenghua's regenerating limbs, was now like thousands of catkins, constantly floating and spinning, like specks of stars, floating and sinking. Su Xuanglin knelt in this disintegrated image. After a long time, he seemed to be muttering to himself, but also seemed to be laughing at himself. He said, "It's best to be in the prime of one's youth. Light hooves and fast horses, seeing the ends of the world. What a good song." When he was young, he often heard Luo Fenghua sing this song. The spiritual catkins in his eyes became memories of the past years. In the fluttering golden catkins, he saw the scene when he first saw his Shizun. At that time, he and his brother were still young. His father brought them to the front of the sex academy. It was autumn and there was an old orange tree in the academy. On the tree, there were heavy fruits. Under the tree, two men were talking. One of them was not so handsome with a plain expression. His face was that of someone who would be drowned out in a crowd. The other was valiant and dignified. His father brought them over and said, "Quickly, greet your master." His brother immediately rushed to kneel down and said to the man with the extraordinary temperament, "Disciple Nangonglu greets Shizun." The man waved his hand and said, "I'm just here to ask Mr. Luo for some advice. I'm not your Shizun. Young masters, you've got the wrong person." His father also smiled and led them to the man who didn't look very outstanding. He said, "This is your master, Elder Luo Fenghua." He raised his head and met Luo Fenghua's somewhat bashful smile. At that time, Luo Fenghua was still young. When he was nervous, he appeared even more immature. His pair of round eyes reflected the visage of the two little disciples, and his cheeks were slightly red. The old sect leader took his hand and said, "Elder, these two children of mine have very different temperaments. The suitable cultivation path for them may not be the same. In the future, I'll have to ask you to be more tolerant and teach them according to their aptitude. Luo Fenghua was holding an orange in his hand. He seemed to be trying muster up the dignity of a teacher, but the hand that kept rubbing the orange exposed his inexperience and shyness. Nangang Lu was very clever. He immediately went up and called out sweetly, "Shizun Luo, Shizun Luo." Luo Fenghua's face immediately turned red. Even the tips of his ears turned scarlet. He waved his hand and said, "No, you don't have to be so polite. I've just started teaching and don't know much. In the future, I'll have to ask the two young masters to give me some pointers." His words dissipated at that not knowing what to say next. Su Xuanglin clearly remembered that day when the sun shone on Lin Yi. This Luo Fenghua, who was more like a Shidi than a Shizun, stood under a tree full of oranges in the sunlight. His ears were very thin. When the light shone on him, he could see the light blue blood vessels under his skin. The thin edges of his ears reflected a sparkling orange yellow. Su Xuanglin then said the first sentence of his life to Luo Fenghua. "Elder Luo, are you 20 years old this year?" This was originally a sarcastic question. Even his father, who was standing next to them, could hear it. However, Luo Fenghua did not hear the sarcasm. He actually smiled and answered sincerely, "No, I'm 17 this year." Su Xuanglin moved his lips. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. He simply waved his hand and left. His father pulled him back into a corner. He said sternly, "Su how can you judge a person's ability based on age? He's not much older than us. Previously, we invited Elder Wang, but you said he was too old. Isn't it because he's old?" Su Xuanglin rolled his eyes. 97. I think he's about to die and become an immortal. 17 won't do. 97 won't do. What do you want? Su Xuanglin said lazily, "Father, can you not look for someone one more time? There's an 80 years difference between these two." The old sect leader was angry. He was embarrassed by his son's words. After gnashing his teeth for a long time, he finally said, "Although his ability is not the best, he has a wide range of knowledge and is very skilled. His spells and martial arts are all top-notch. Anyway, you just have to learn from him. If you're still not satisfied after a year, we'll change again." After talking for a long time, the two of them came out from the corner. When they returned to the front of the academy, Su Xuanglin saw that his brother was actually chatting happily with Luo Fenghua. Looking at his brother's expression, it seemed as if he had known this Shizun Luo for more than 10 years. However, this was not too strange. After all, Nangang Lu had the ability to talk amicably to anyone as long as he was willing. On the other hand, Luo Fenghua was still a little anxious and reserved. When he looked up and saw Su Xuanglin, his anxiety and shyness became even more obvious. He looked at Su Xuanglin's impatient face as he was dragged by his father to come to him. He hesitated for a while and used the most clumsy way to please this willful little disciple of his. He handed the orange that he had been holding but had not eaten to Su Xuanglin. Su Xuanglin was speechless. "It's very sweet. Try it." The 17-year-old little master looked helpless and panicked. He even looked a little pitiful. Only then did Su Xuanglin notice that on the corner of his robes, there was even a flat patch. Was he that poor? To be able to obtain the position of the teacher of the two young masters of the Rufeng sect, it's no wonder he was so anxious and wanted to beg for it. "I don't like oranges," Su Xuanglin said. "Since Shizun Luo wants to stay here and not leave, this is the first thing I want Shizun Luo to remember." Su-er. The old sect leader was about to scold him, but Luo Fenghua waved his hand and quickly took back the orange. He said, "It's all right, it's all right. Sect leader, you don't have to worry about it." Sigh. Such a rude child who doesn't know how to respect his teacher. My apologies. It's all right. Luo Fenghua smiled and looked at Su Xuanglin again. His eyes were gentle and friendly, but he was also a little cautious. Actually, it doesn't matter whether you acknowledge me as your master or not. You can just learn from me of what I know. You don't have to acknowledge me as your Shizun. The old sect leader hurriedly said, how can that be? Titles are all empty. Luo Fenghua's cheeks were red. He scratched his head uneasily. Actually, I also feel that I'm a little too young. He turned his head and said to Su Xuanglin, if you don't mind, you can call me by my name from now on. Su Xuanglin looked at him quietly for a while. Suddenly, he sneered. Just as Luo Fenghua, this poor honest man, was confused by his actions and grew more and more embarrassed, he straightened his clothes and properly bowed to him. Then, he raised his face. The air was filled with the fragrant scent of the orange tree as the light and shadows moved. Su Xuanglin smiled. His eyebrows were raised high and domineering, and the corners of his mouth were slightly arrogant and evilish. However, he was still young at that time. When he smiled, there was naturally a trace of tenderness and sweetness like a peach. That was true enough. Titles are all empty. So, why should he care so much about what he called the other party? Thus, Su Xuanglin lazily and unhurriedly called out, Shizun. The orange leaves rustled, the sunlight mottled and flowing all over the ground. The wind started to blow. Forget it. I just have to make do with this one teacher. In less than a year, we can find the next one, he thought. At that time, Su Xuanglin really thought that everything was as usual and that today was just an ordinary day in his life. End chapter.